We're learning Rav Shimshon Pinchas' classic Musar Sefer, and the name of the Sefer is The Attainment of Torah. It's Nefesh Shimshon HaTorah B'Kinyan Neha, and this is lesson 3 in part 1. We're going to be learning page 9 through 12 today in the English Sefer. And there's a very interesting question that's implied in what Rav Shimshon asks. And that question is, how does a person reach the levels of Torah of the Chazon Ish? How does a person reach the levels of Torah of Reb Nachman Mibreslov, of the Arizal? What is the secret that provides this level of understanding? What is it that these people were able to do? After all, Reb Nachman testifies about himself that he was a normal person. We know that the Vilna Gaon met later in life a chavrusa of his, and this chavrusa, 50 years after they learned together in yeshiva, said, "You know as well as I that when we were both together in yeshiva, that we were basically equal. How is it that you became the Vilna Gaon and I didn't?" And the Vilna Gaon said that, do you remember when we learned that learning Torah 101 times is not equivalent to learning it 100 times? And of course his colleague said, of course. And the Vilna Gaon said, did you believe it? And his colleague said, yes. And the Vilna Gaon said, that's the difference between you and I. You believed it. I didn't, so I checked it out. But the interesting thing is, what was the Vilna Gaon saying? What's the difference between learning Torah 101 times and 100 times? There's a saying that Torah is acquired by Hashem gives wisdom to those who are wise, from Daniel. And in Koheles Rabbah, Rav Chalafta asks a question, says, how can it be that Hashem gives wisdom to the wise? How is it not that he gives wisdom to those who aren't wise? I mean, after all, it would seem that we get wisdom because we're not wise, not because we're wise. And so Rav Chalafta went and asked a woman, said, if I were to give a loan to someone, would I give a loan to someone who's poor or someone who's rich? And she asks, of course, you'd give a loan to someone who's rich. And so Rav Chalafta says, why would I give a loan to someone who's rich? They're already rich. She said, of course, because if they can't repay it, they'll still have you the money. If you give a loan to someone who's poor and they can't repay it, they're not going to repay you. This is what Rav Chalafta was asking. Hashem gives Torah to those who are wise, but how can a person be wise? It seems like a stare, it seems like a contradiction. And the answer is the wisdom a person needs to have is to start with the love of Torah. When you look at someone who's, let's say, an incredible mountain climber, or someone who's reached the level of proficiency at a sport, lahavda, like a Michael Jordan in basketball, and you ask, how is it that this person can achieve this level? You realize that they start with a certain chukka, they have a certain desire. It's said that only a born artist can endure what it takes to become one. An artist doesn't start as an artist, but they're an artist because they can endure what it takes to become an artist. A Talmid Chacham, a born Talmid Chacham, only a born Talmid Chacham can endure what it takes to become one. A kind of single-minded devotion. So we know that Hashem loves us, but there's a reciprocal love that's needed, not just a reception of the love. This is what happens when a little child sees its father and jumps up and gives the father a kiss on the cheek. Father might have come home from a hard day at work, may have his mind on 1,000 other things, but when the child jumps up and kisses him on his cheek, he's filled with a love for the child, and he gives back to that child 1,000 times more. But it starts with the child loving the father. So, us receiving unconditionally from Hashem, the unconditional infinite love of the Torah, starts with our love for the Torah. And that's what the attainment of Torah is all about. It starts with a single-minded desire to remove all the veils of the heart, the many veils of the heart that cloud us over, one by one, the veils of the heart that symbolize our attachment to the world, to cut all of the invisible strings that attach us to the things of this world, to the distractions, to the absent-mindedness, to the involvement in the material world, to one by one let them go, and to realize they're not what gives us our pleasure, they're not what gives us our sustenance, they're not what gives us our being. What gives us all those things is only the Torah, and to internalize that and to feel it again and again, until the more we feel it, the more those bonds dissolve, just as a meditation. And this is really also why the Torah is a bris. A bris, normally we feel, is a one-sided affair. We're making the bris on ourselves. We're the ones who are entering into a bond. But actually, a bris is a contract. It's a two-way contract. They're equal parties to a bris. And the Torah is called the bris Aharon, or the bris of love, the bris Ahava. The bris Ahava of Torah is that we are entering into a contract. We give over our heart, as the Chazon Ish says, a person needs to give over their heart in order to learn the Torah. We give over our heart to Hashem as a gift, meaning it's something that we don't have to give. We can keep our heart attached to the world, but we freely decide to give our heart, meaning we have to take something from ourselves. The selfishness that's involved when we're involved with the world is something we have to give up. And when we give that up, we take our heart, our desires, and we decide to make Hashem, the Torah, our desire. And that's our part of the bris. The part of the bris that Hashem gives is the eternal nature of the Torah, and the Torah's light that is responsible, as we learned yesterday, for Tchias HaMesim.